Tonight's story doesn't begin with a breakup. It doesn't begin with a fight. It begins with a man standing beside a chocolate fountain holding 2 dessert plates, waiting for a woman who never came back. This is not your usual story. This is how I found out my marriage was over. During the Macarena, Part 1. 2 desserts, 1 empty chair. I don't care if it makes me sound pathetic. I stood there for 13 minutes, not 12, 13, with a mini cheesecake on 1 plate and a brownie with extra whipped cream on the other. 1 for me, 1 for Karen. I remember thinking, she's probably in the bathroom. She'll be back any second. But the second became minutes, and the minutes, they turned into a realization. She wasn't coming back to the table because she was already dancing. No, not dancing like a let's enjoy the moment type of thing. It was him again, the guy from the rehearsal dinner, the one who made a joke about me being the designated purse holder. His name doesn't matter. Let's call him Dustin because he had the personality of drywall. Karen hated public dancing, or so she said. Anytime I tried to get her on the floor at a wedding, she'd laugh me off, saying she felt awkward or looked dumb. But there she was, smiling, twirling, locked into this rhythm with Dustin like they'd done it 100 times before. Her hair fell over her shoulder in that way. I used to push back. He did it instead, and I stood there with the cheesecake and the brownie like a decorative plant. I didn't make a scene, didn't throw the plates, didn't shout. I just placed both desserts on the chair she had left empty next to me and walked out of the venue without touching my jacket. No one stopped me, not even her. The cold air hit harder than expected. I didn't bring a coat. I didn't even know where I was going. I just walked past the decorative pond, crossed a parking lot, then sat on a curb next to the valet guy who offered me gum without asking questions. You'd think this was the moment I cried, but it wasn't. That came later, because 10 minutes after I left, my phone buzzed with a message from her. Just 1 line. Where are you? Dustin says, you left. I didn't respond. Then came another. I didn't mean to make it weird. Can we talk? And then a third, a voice note. Unopened. The transcript of that message, the one she didn't mean to send to me, is burned into my mind like a scar, and it starts with her whispering. He left. Seriously, that was fast. I know it's cliched to say a single moment changed everything, but that voice message, that careless little recording, it was like a dagger dipped in sarcasm and regret. I hadn't even played it yet when I saw the preview text. He left. Seriously, that was fast. My thumb hovered over the play button for longer than I'm proud of. I was sitting in my car, the engine off, the interior cold, the windows fogging slightly from my breath. I played it. Curran's voice came through, light, teasing, smug. Well, looks like someone took his little pride and went home early. I told you he hates crowds. He probably thinks I embarrassed him or something. Then a second voice, deeper male, laughing. Poor guy. You didn't even kiss me. That's when I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking. And I'm not the dramatic type. I've never been one for public breakdowns or grand exits. I'm the type who bottles everything until it ferments into shame. I stared at the venue through my windshield. I could see the glow of the chandeliers through the frosted windows. I could imagine the slow dances starting, the DJ switching from Bruno Mars to Ed Sheeran, the part of the night where everyone suddenly wants to hold someone. Except I had no one to hold. Not anymore. For a brief second, I actually thought about going back in. Not to yell, not to confront, just to look her in the eye and give her that same, "I see you now" look she once gave me 5 years ago when we first met. But I didn't. I couldn't. Some things once broken don't deserve a repair job. They deserve a quiet goodbye. I drove. No destination, just away. I passed by an all-night diner we used to go to in our first year together. I almost stopped. Then I saw her name in the contact list on my car's screen again, calling. I declined, then again. And again I turned my phone off. It stayed off until sunrise. When I turned it back on the next morning, I had 17 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 11 texts, all from her, all saying some version of, "We need to talk. You're overreacting. Please come home." But nothing topped the final one. A photo of the same brownie I left on the chair, smeared, half-eaten, sitting in the passenger seat of her car, captioned, "I kept it for you. Can we start over?" No apologies. No acknowledgement of what I heard in the voice message. Just cake and denial. I stared at that picture for a long time, wondering what kind of person thinks dessert can fix betrayal. But the real twist hadn't come yet. That came 3 days later, when I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Her sister, Janelle. What she told me changed the whole story and exposed something Karen never wanted me to know. The thing about Janelle is that she never liked me. Or at least, that's what I believed for years. She always had this tight smile around me, the kind that said, "You're not good enough for my sister," but I won't say it out loud. I avoided her during holidays, kept small talk to the weather, and nodded politely when she mentioned her latest boyfriend. We weren't close. We never were. So when I saw her name flash on my screen that Tuesday evening, I almost didn't pick up. The message was short. "Hey, Elle, can we talk alone?" At first I thought Karen had sent her to smooth things over. That was her style. Manipulate through others, cry to her mom, or triangulate through coworkers until I felt like the bad guy for making a scene. But something about the way Janelle messaged me, it felt different, almost urgent. So I replied, "Call me." She did, 5 minutes later. No greetings, no hesitation. I know what happened at the wedding. Karen won't shut up about it. And I know you probably don't want to hear this, but you need to. There was silence on the line for a second, just her breathing. "She does this," Janelle continued, her voice low. "She flirts with guys when she's bored, always has. High school, college, even when she was engaged to you. It's not always physical, but it's not innocent either. And she always finds a way to blame the other person when it blows up." I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Not because I didn't suspect it, but because hearing it from her sister felt like confirmation I never asked for and definitely never expected. She said, "You just walked out," Janelle added. "Good for you. Most guys don't. They stay. They shrink." Her words echoed in my head. They shrink. I didn't realize until then how small I'd been feeling in that relationship. How often I second-guessed myself, made excuses for her behavior, told myself this is just how marriage works. But it wasn't. Not when one person is constantly stepping out of bounds and the other is too afraid to blow the whistle. Before we ended the call, Janelle said one last thing. She won't admit it, but she's scared now. You didn't react the way she expected. That's why she's panicking. And she was right. Because later that night, Karen showed up unannounced. She knocked on my door like nothing had happened, dressed in casual sweats, makeup washed off, hair tied back, like the version of her I hadn't seen in months. The "I'm still your wife" version. "Elle, can we just talk?" she said through the door. I didn't answer. She knocked again. "I messed up. Okay. Can we stop pretending like we're in some Cold War? You left me there. That hurt." I finally opened the door, but not for reconciliation. I handed her the unopened envelope I had prepped earlier that day, the one with the key to our apartment and a note inside that read, "You didn't lose me. You gave me away." She stood frozen. "What does this mean?" she asked, voice rising. "It means," I said quietly, "this time, I'm not shrinking." I closed the door. I didn't lock it. I didn't need to because, for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of her leaving. But what I didn't know at the time was that she already had. I didn't sleep that night. After I closed the door on Karen and handed her the envelope, I sat down on the edge of the couch, still wearing the wrinkled dress shirt from the wedding, and just stared at the darkened screen of the TV. Murphy, our dog, lay curled by my feet like he could sense something irreversible had happened. His head kept lifting every time the apartment creaked, as if expecting her to return. But I knew better. That version of her, the one I fell in love with in coffee shops and bookstore aisles, was long gone. I didn't cry. Not then. I was past sadness. What I felt was a strange mixture of weightlessness and nausea. Like I'd been holding up a structure for years and only now realized it wasn't mine to carry. The real unraveling began the next morning at 6:42 a.m. I received an email, not from Karen, from a man named Aldrin Vance. The subject line read, simply, "I think we should talk. This isn't about revenge." I nearly deleted it, assuming it was spam or some manipulative trick, but something about the name tugged at my memory. Then it hit me. He was the photographer at the wedding. Not just a vendor, he was one of the groom's close friends. I opened the email. "Elwood, I don't know you well, but I saw something Saturday night that didn't sit right with me. I didn't plan to get involved, but I have something you need to see. If you want it, reply. If not, I'll delete it." Aldrin. The message was too careful to ignore. I replied instantly. "Send it." 5 minutes later, a video file hit my inbox. I didn't even breathe as I hit play. At first, it was footage of the dance floor, guests laughing, couples spinning. Then the camera focused. Karen and Dustin, arms wrapped, bodies close. At one point, she whispered something in his ear and kissed his cheek. Then came the moment that gutted me. He reached down, pulled out his phone, and handed it to her. She typed something in and nodded. The timestamp on the video, 9:14 p.m. Just minutes before I walked out. She didn't just flirt. She didn't just humiliate me. She gave him her number while I was still inside. While I was waiting with 2 plates of dessert, I stared at the paused frame of her smiling in that camera, a smile I hadn't seen aimed at me in over a year. Then I looked around my apartment, the walls we painted together, the bookshelf I built for her, the dog we rescued. All of it suddenly felt like a beautifully decorated crime scene. What made it worse? The message from Aldrin that followed. "I've seen this before, man. Not just with her. Weddings bring out the worst in people who are already halfway gone. I figured you deserved to know." He wasn't being cruel. He wasn't gloating. He was just a stranger who cared more about my dignity than my wife did. That same afternoon, I started packing. Not her things. Mine. I wasn't going to wait for her to move out. I wasn't going to ask her to explain. I didn't want her crying on my couch or making promises with cracked words. I made a list, cleared my side of the closet, booked an Airbnb across town, and left her a note taped to the fridge. You can keep the apartment. You already gave away the rest. I left Murphy with her. He always loved her more. Well, maybe I just needed to untangle myself completely. But just when I thought the dust was finally settling, I got a call I never expected. Not from Karen, not from Janelle, but from someone whose name I hadn't heard since my wedding day. And what he told me opened a chapter of this story I never saw coming. When I saw Zeke Roslin pop up on my phone, I thought it had to be a mistake. Zeke was the best man at our wedding. Not mine. Hers. Her old friend from college. The one she swore used to have a thing for her, but it never went anywhere. We hadn't spoken in almost 5 years. He wasn't just distant. He had dropped off the map the moment our honeymoon ended. I figured he didn't like me and just faded out of Corinne's life. Turns out I was wrong about at least one of those things. His voice was low, almost sheepish when I answered. Elle, I wasn't sure if you'd pick up. I need to tell you something, and you're not going to want to hear it. But you have to. I leaned back in the chair of the Airbnb I'd moved into the day before. The mattress was stiff, the room sterile. It felt like a hospital for broken trust. Go ahead, I said, already bracing for impact. I should have told you years ago, he began. But I stayed out of it because she asked me to, and because honestly, I didn't think you'd believe me back then. But you deserve to know, Karen and Dustin. They've known each other a lot longer than she claims. I blinked, my hand tightening around the edge of the table. How long? Since before your wedding. She met him at some marketing conference. He wasn't just some flirty guest at the reception. They've been in touch. And that weekend, that wasn't the first time they've seen each other. My mouth went dry. I asked him what I was too afraid to say out loud. Did they ever? Yes, Zeke replied bluntly. Before you were married. And I can't confirm anything after that. But the way she talked about him, it never really stopped. Even when you guys were newlyweds, she'd bring him up jokingly, casually, like it meant nothing. But I could tell it wasn't nothing. He paused like he was weighing whether to continue. Then he added, she used to tell people you were safe, that you were good for stability, long-term planning. You'd be a great dad. But Dustin was fun, her word, not mine. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I just stared at the peeling wallpaper, my mind replaying every moment I'd ignored, every shrug I dismissed as paranoia, every quiet moment where she turned her back to text someone while I folded laundry or washed dishes. I thought I was being the patient husband, the understanding one, the mature one. Turns out I was just being used as a placeholder, a human backup plan. Zeke apologized. I could hear it in his voice. The guilt, the years of silence. I stayed away because I didn't want to destroy your marriage. But I realize now I was helping her destroy you, and that's not right. After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. No TV, no music, just my own thoughts twisting around my spine like ivy. I thought about how many times I defended her to my friends, how often I excused the way she belittled me in front of others, how many jokes she made that were just a little too sharp, a little too personal. I thought she was just stressed or quirky or fiery. She was rehearsing her exit for years, and I had built the stage. Later that night, I got a text from Karen. Not a long message, not an apology, just a photo. It was Murphy, our dog, sitting by the front door. Captioned, "He keeps waiting for you." I do too. That might have worked once, but now it just felt like manipulation with a leash. I typed something, deleted it, typed again, deleted it again. Finally, I wrote one sentence and hit send. He deserves better. So did I. I turned my phone face down, closed my eyes, and made a silent decision. This wasn't the end of our story. It was the start of mine. The sound of the knock startled me more than it should have. I wasn't used to visitors anymore. People like me, we don't attract the kind of company that comes bearing closure. We attract silence. Heavy, slow silence that creeps in when you stop being useful to someone. But this knock, it wasn't just unexpected. It was fast, impatient, familiar. I stood still for a second, hoping it would go away. Then another knock came, louder, followed by a voice. "Elwood, I know you're in there." It was her. I wanted to ignore it, let her knock until her knuckles bled and her guilt caught up with her. But I opened the door, not out of weakness, no, out of curiosity. Because part of me needed to know what kind of lies she would use to paint herself innocent this time. She looked worn down, like she hadn't slept. No makeup, dark circles, hoodie pulled over her head. For a second, she didn't speak. She just looked at me like I was some ghost she didn't expect to see standing on 2 feet. "I'm sorry," she said, and the words hit the floor like cold marbles. Pretty, but useless. "I'm not here to hear that," I replied. "I know," she sighed, "but I need you to understand something. You leaving, that was the first time I realized you might actually stop loving me." I didn't flinch. "You stopped earning that love long before I walked out." She stepped inside before I gave permission, sat on the edge of the cheap Airbnb couch like she still had a right to anything in my life. "I know you found out about Dustin," she said. "Zeke told me he talked to you. I'm not going to lie anymore. It wasn't just once, and it wasn't just before we were married." There it was, the full sentence I had waited to hear, not because I needed confirmation. I already had that. I needed her to finally say it out loud. For once, I needed the weight of the betrayal to come from her mouth, not mine. "What else?" I asked, my tone flat. She hesitated. "I married you because I thought you were the kind of man who wouldn't leave. You were loyal. You were sweet. She broke off, swallowing hard. "You loved me more than I loved you." There it was, the truth finally unclouded. And weirdly, I didn't feel rage. I didn't scream or throw anything or collapse. I felt a strange peace because now I understood everything. I had been chosen not for who I was, but for what I could be for her. A steady ground, while she reached for more dangerous, exciting cliffs. But she wasn't done. "I tried to make it work," she continued. "But every time things got too normal, I wanted chaos again. And Dustin, he was chaos. He didn't love me. He just wanted to be wanted. But I ruined the one person who actually did." "Then why are you here?" I asked, arms crossed, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. She looked down at her hands, her voice a whisper, "Because when you handed me that envelope, I realized no one's ever let me feel the consequences. Not really. They yell, they cry, they chase. You just closed the door." She looked up again, and I needed to see if it was really locked. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the small kitchen, poured myself some water, and leaned on the counter. "I didn't lock it, Karen," I said finally. "You did. The moment you thought I was a placeholder. The moment you gave your number to someone else while I was still inside the room." She nodded slowly, standing. Her eyes shimmered, but I didn't trust those tears anymore. They weren't regret. They were mourning the loss of control. Before she left, she turned to me and said, "I hope someday someone gives you what I couldn't. And I hope you finally believe you deserve more than me." I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. She left the door open behind her. I walked over, gently closed it, and for the first time in years, locked it. Later that night I got a text, not from her, from Dustin. Yes, him. And what he said, it pushed everything I thought I knew into dangerous new territory. I stared at the notification for at least a full minute before I even opened it. The name, Dustin Callery, glared up at me like it had no business being on my screen. I hadn't saved his number, but I recognized it from old photos Karen showed me once, back when I thought he was just some random name from her past. There was no preview text, just a gray bubble with the timestamp and a simple label message from unknown sender. Eventually, curiosity won over caution. I opened it. "Elwood, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I'm going to say this anyway, because whether or not you ever respond, I have to get it out of my system." I kept reading. "I didn't go to that wedding to hurt you. I didn't even expect to see her again. I didn't know she was married to you. She told me she was single. I swear on everything. I had no idea you were even there until I asked someone who that guy at the back table was, and they said her husband. That's when I knew I'd made a huge mistake." I read it twice, trying to gauge whether it was sincere or just a poor attempt at damage control. He went on. "We had a thing once years ago. She always kept the door cracked open, you know. I thought it was harmless, just flirty messages and old nostalgia. I didn't think she'd actually take my hand in front of you like that. That wasn't confidence. That was cruelty. And I played along like an idiot. That line stuck with me. That wasn't confidence, that was cruelty. Because that's exactly what it was. She knew I was there. She wanted me to see. Maybe not consciously, but something inside her had been waiting for a moment to watch me crumble. Dustin wasn't the threat. He was the weapon. But the next part of his message hit even harder. "I saw you leave. I saw the look on your face. I've been punched before, but I've never felt that kind of guilt. I don't expect you to forgive me. But for what it's worth, I walked away too. I haven't spoken to her since. I think I realized something that night. She never loved either of us. She just didn't want to be alone. It wasn't an excuse, and I didn't take it as one. It was a confession. A bitter, strangely humble one from a man I had every reason to hate. But instead of rage, I felt something else. Relief. Because for the first time, the weight of all of it was being shared. It wasn't just my failure. It wasn't all on me. Two different men had now said the same thing about the same woman. It wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. And I was finally stepping out of it. I didn't reply to Dustin. I didn't need to. I turned off my phone, walked outside into the cool evening air, and just breathed. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't replaying old conversations in my head. I wasn't imagining what I could have done differently. I wasn't shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. But fate wasn't done twisting the knife, because when I returned to the Airbnb later that night, there was a small white envelope taped to the door. No return address, just my name in her handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and what was written on it would change everything I thought I knew about how this story would end. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. For a second, I half expected it to be some last-ditch attempt to win me back, or worse, a confession of something even darker. But as I read her words, I realized this wasn't for her benefit. It was the first and maybe only thing Karen had ever done for me. I won't ask for anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding. You owe me nothing. I've spent so long confusing attention with affection and comfort with love. I looked at you like a safe harbor, but I treated that safety like weakness. And that was my failure. The night you walked away, something inside me cracked. Not because you left, but because I knew you finally saw me. Truly. Not the version I tried to sell you. I've hurt people who only ever held out open hands. That's a wound I'll have to carry. You didn't deserve any of it. And despite what I said when I was scared, you were never small. You were the biggest thing I had. I hope you find someone who runs toward your love instead of away from it. I sat with that letter for hours, not because I couldn't process it, but because for once I didn't feel like a man abandoned. I felt like a man who made it out. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was breathing again. And that's when I decided I wouldn't let this story end in resentment. I would let it end in release. I moved out of the Airbnb a few weeks later, found a small house on the edge of town with creaky floors and a wild backyard that Murphy, yes, I got him back, immediately turned into his personal jungle. I started writing again, not just journals or confessions like this one. Stories, things I thought I'd lost the heart for. Turns out all I needed was a cleared space and the sound of my own voice again. Karen never tried to contact me after the letter, and I'm grateful, because closure isn't something you get from someone else. It's something you give yourself. Do I still think about her sometimes, but not with pain anymore? Just recognition. She was a chapter, not the story. And me? I'm still here, still soft-spoken, still the guy who refills snack bowls at parties. But I don't shrink anymore, because I learned that walking away doesn't mean giving up. Sometimes, it's the loudest kind of self-respect. Thank you for joining me on this journey. This has been Reddit Confessions. If this story touched you, inspired you, or reminded you of something from your own life, we'd love to hear it. Tell us in the comments. What's a moment in history, yours or the world's, that changed everything in a quiet but powerful way? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel, because here on Reddit Confessions, every story deserves to be heard, even the quiet ones.